Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to open this meeting up at 3:03 p.m. for our March 15th special board meeting. I'd like to do a roll call now. Steve Kane,
Here.
Elizabeth Martinez,
Present.
Carla Torres de Luna,
Here.
Lisa Marks.
Present.
All right. Please do the flag salute, Lisa.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of
of
the
the
United
United
States of
States of
America,
America and
and
to the
to the
republic
republic for
for
which it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
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 nation,
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 under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
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 liberty and
liberty and
justice for all.
justice for all. Okay. Um, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
any discussion? Okay, a vote, please. All in favor?
I.
Any opposed? All right, 5-0. All right, let's go on now to information item 5A, which is a board bylaw 9270, proposed revision, which is dealing with conflict of interest.
So thank you for that, Jen. I'm going to step in here and talk for just a couple of minutes about the review that's taking place in our district right now. We are participating what's called federal programs monitoring. It's a process that is a nationwide process in which the United States Department of Education engages in looking at all of the plans and policies and expenditures and documents of a school district. My first year in the district in 2018-19, we were going through a full big review and we got selected again this year. And when they do that, they really do, as you who are educators or work in public service know, they comb through everything you can imagine. So they found a policy, our conflict of interest policy, and they said, there is a section that is missing in that policy. So we contacted our legal counsel. What's before the board today is just for information. This will give you all a week or so to look through it, think about it. Our legal counsel has recommended it for us, so I know it meets the requirement of FPM, and I hope to bring it back to the board on the 23rd for a proposed approval. And so I just wanted you to know why this one kind of came out of the blue. They're doing the review right now, and they reached me last week and said, hey, when can we get this in front of your school board? And I said, funnily enough, we have a special meeting on the 15th.
So Diego, there's no changes yet to this as of yet. The law office is going to recommend changes to it.
That's right. That's what you're looking at now. And they wouldn't become permanent changes until the next school board meeting if the board wants to approve the changes. And it is my recommendation that we adopt the changes that our lawyers are suggesting at our next meeting.
All right. Any questions, comments?
I can't hear you, Jan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any questions or comments? Thank you, Steve.
No.
Lisa?
No, I was shaking my hand. No.
Oh, okay. All right. Sounds good. So let's now go to 6B. 6B is, or I'm sorry, 6A, which is the approval of recommendation to offer in-person instruction on April 12th in accordance with SB 86 and the California Department of Public Health recommendations upon San Benito County entering the red tier. Superintendent Ochoa?
If it's okay with the board, I would like to present my screen. Would that be okay?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm just realizing we don't have public comments on here. We
I,
skipped that.
I was going to ask that. I thought we were going to do public comment first.
Yes, so I think
On
maybe,
a special board meeting, Jan, it can only be for agendized meeting,
That's why
agendized
it's at the end.
items. But we do have people that were speaking on behalf of the reopening, right?
yes,
We do
shouldn't,
have public comments.
shouldn't we give them consideration?
It's up to you,
Absolutely.
Jen, when you want to do it, if you want to do it before the presentation or after the presentation.
I think we should give them the opportunity to speak before.
Mhm.
I don't know, how does the board feel?
Fine with
Yes,
me.
agree.
Lisa?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, then why don't we let our community speak before we hear the presentation? If everybody's in agreement with that, and why don't we hear our public comments? And let's do that. And then we'll hear Superintendent Ochoa speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
No.
Okay. So we have several emails for public comment. Okay. This one says, Dear Hollister School Board, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I have some very large concerns about how the schools will be able to keep safe procedures during pickup and drop off times. How will the staggered pickup drop off times work? How will HSD enforce the safety measures? Will R.O. Hardin make sure that none of their drop off pickup times in either AM or PM group coincide with Hollister Prep? And this is sincerely Jennifer Fogarty. Hi, I'm just sending my voice over email asking to please open the schools as soon as possible. Thank you. Mindy Chipley, Lad Lane parent. The next one. Dear Superintendent Ochoa and Board of Trustees, I want to thank you for all your efforts over the course of the last year. I know that most of us could have never anticipated that we would have to adjust to life in a pandemic. Thank you for prioritizing the health and well-being of our community by prioritizing facts and science as you make decisions. I hope this continues to be the priority as decisions are made. I would like to express my concerns about potential reopening of the buildings because in reality, we are not reopening schools. They have been open. And I would dare to say that individuals working in schools have been working harder than ever to meet the needs of not only their students, but the entire community. I firmly believe that the district leadership and the board have made every effort to build a plan for safely bringing kids back. Now I believe state officials are using money to make for a forced effort to bring kids back to campuses. This is infuriating, and I hope that the board will make a decision grounded in equity for our community. As this discussion is had, I keep hearing that educators have had the chance to be vaccinated. What people are not understanding is that families of educators and our students have not had the chance to be vaccinated. This is a point that my 13-year-old made when we were asked how she felt about her return to school. And these are her words. My teacher pulled us to find out about returning to school. I miss school so much, but I know that the time is not yet right. I know teachers have been vaccinated, but what about their families and the families of my classmates that haven't been? I know kids miss school. I know there are kids who are really struggling, and still I believe that a full reopening should wait until fall, but continue planning for small groups of students who need that in person support. When you look at the rate of administration of vaccine, you see inequities that exist within the community. The rate at which Black and Brown folks are being vaccinated is disproportional to that of other communities. Currently, our voices are being drowned out by those who feel they have been wronged by the closure of buildings. Let's consider the 535,000 Americans that have died as a result of COVID. They were wronged. The virus has left many of us devastated and defeated. As of 11:59 p.m. on March 14th, San Benito County administered 13,393 vaccines, and the population based on the 2010 census, our population was 62,808, which would only be about 21% of the population. It comes from a place of privilege when we are guided by sheer emotion while making decisions. Many of our families do not have a choice when it comes to our pre existing health conditions or living in multi generational households. An additional concern I have is in regarding switching models now that we have such short time left in the school year. Changing the model would also impact the teachers and most likely would impact time with the teachers and most likely reduce it. I feel it would be best to focus on bringing back small groups and utilize paraeducators, retired teachers, or substitute teachers to support these efforts so that class rosters are not impacted. I hope that all voices are heard and considered when making a decision if we don't bring kids back. We stand nothing to lose. If we bring kids back to the building, we stand lives to lose. Thank you, Mariana Alvarez. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure my internet. Okay, next one. Hello, board members. I have sent you email after email on why I believe schools should be open. I have sent information and scientific data that proves school can open safely with protocols in place. All around us, schools are opening immediately for children. I know that most of it because of the financial incentive given by the state of California. Whatever made your mind change, I am just happy that children will finally start getting the help they deserve. Thank you, Ashley Newman. We have a few more. Okay. To the HESD board, I appreciate the idea of reopening of an in-person learning and can definitely understand the pros of doing so. We have come a long way in addressing the safety of the community by using social distancing and wearing masks. The vaccinations are promising and appreciate the fact that teachers are protected. On the other hand, I'm concerned that the opening schools prematurely could spark future outbreaks. Students are too young per current guidelines to be vaccinated and more than likely won't be affected by COVID 19, but they can transmit it to family members, putting a large population at risk. Ideally, would like you to consider postponing in person learning till this coming fall, where the vaccine are anticipated to be available to the entire adult population. If at all possible, can you please address the above mentioned concerns, as I truly believe that by reopening too soon, many people will be at risk. Best regards, Danny. Dear board members of Hollister School District, I come writing to you as a parent of two small children in your district. The COVID pandemic has interrupted my daughter's education just as it has many other families in Hollister. During the pandemic, my husband was deployed overseas with the U.S. Coast Guard and returned home in October. So that added to the additional strain on trying to ensure my children received the education they so needed. As an essential employee, I have physically been attending work since the beginning. Immediately, I had to rearrange not only childcare during the day, but find someone that would assist my child with their remote learning. Fortunately for my family, we were able to afford full time daycare utilizing the YMCA facility. However, the setup in their classrooms was not conducive to what my children needed. I constantly got notifications almost on the daily about my child being distracted, not paying attention, watching movies, or playing games, not being able to take exams due to interruptions, not getting their work done during the allotted time, etc. In January, I pulled my children out of YMCA and transferred them to Quake Learning Center since they had less children at that location. Still, both my daughters are in a large room with other students from various schools, all doing different things at different times. I weekly get a call from my third grade daughter's teacher that she's distracted, is not paying attention. She failed her math test last week due to constant interruptions at the learning center. If I could be at home with her and help her do schoolwork remotely, believe me, I would. That has never been an option for me or my husband. So I have sat here and watched my daughter struggle, reading the notes daily about the constant distractions, and I'm not able to do much about it. I've talked to the center about allowing a quiet space for that Emma can take exams, but due to staffing, they cannot put her in a room by herself. She cannot take off her headphones. She cannot speak freely to her teacher. My daughter needs to be in school where they are around peers, all working on the same thing, all reaching out for the help for the same problem. Emma doesn't reach out to her teacher for clarification on assistance because no one else in the class is reaching out. so she feels that it makes her look dumb for asking. My childcare issue is not the problem. My daughter really needs her teacher, and to fail third grade is not okay. Her feeling that she is dumb and can't understand anything is not okay. One thing I have discovered by my children being at three different childcare centers where they were in close contact with other children, neither of my two girls have even so much as had a sniffle. I never received notification of any other children in the facilities getting sick either. And cleaning practices, they have been thoroughly discussed. It is possible to keep our children safe. Teachers can remain safe using the proper PPE and safe distance practices. I have seen it and lived it for a year. It can be done. My kindergarten daughter is at a disadvantage because she has not yet met her classmates, nor has she been able to experience what the norms are for being in classroom. When her and her classmates finally arrive, they will know how to behave or how to talk to one another. If they could experience this even on a partial level, it would help them grow tremendously. Thank you for taking the time to read my email and advocating for return in the classroom. Sincerely, Emma and Olivia's parents, Mina and Mike Canning. Board members, please reopen our schools. My daughter is a kindergarten student at HDLA and would love for her to meet her teachers and classmates in person. Our kids have been very patient and they deserve the opportunity. COVID cases have dropped in our county to a rate that I feel comfortable sending her back into the classroom. Other schools in our county have been successfully for months. I think our school district is capable of doing the same. Respectfully. Let's see. Couple more. To Hollister School District, I vote yes. Please have the children in San Benito County return to an in-classroom school. We need to get our kids back in the classroom. I feel it is safe time to start opening schools back up with COVID numbers going down a tremendous amount at this point. Thank you, and I hope you concern my vote as yes to reopen the schools for our district. Sincerely, Yvonne Flippo. Hello. I realize you are getting plenty of emails on parents' thoughts about transitioning to a hybrid model. As a parent and advocate for my daughter, I ask that you please make the safest choice. Look at the data available. What are the COVID case numbers looking like for schools that have started in hybrid model? I know many families are in outrage about schools being closed for so long, but our children's safety should be the number one priority. My biggest concern is that you will feel pressure to make a decision and allow that to affect you all in making the safest decision based on the data available and what the experts suggest. The purpose of this email is to say, please don't do that. I am sure it's hard to say when it is the right time to make this transition, but please let the COVID case numbers be your guide, not the number of parents' complaints. Thank you, Felicia. Hi, I'd like to express some concerns and frustrations with how the board has handled the reopening of in-person education. First, I think it's great that you've been so diligent in vaccinating your educators. I know the children have not been shown to significantly to the spread of COVID-19. However, that doesn't eliminate them as a potential transmission source or target group. I think it would be prudent of you to postpone your reopening until the entire student population has received the vaccine. Children have gotten sick. Children have died. Other campuses have had to close because of student transmission. I understand that parents have placed immense pressure on the school district to reopen. My retort would be that the end of the school year is nearing and that their kids will end up back home for the summer in a few months, anyways. Have you considered that students' parents and spouses, families of your faculty have not received the vaccine? You're putting the community at risk, and for what? Money, funds, greed? If it's so safe to hold in person classes, why are you holding your board meeting over a Zoom call? I would love for you to address these concerns at the March 15th board meeting. Regards. And those are all the emails that went to for the board meeting. That's it, Jan. Can't hear you.
You're on
Do we have
mute, Jan.
any,
Oh, there
Yep.
you go.
Do we have any phone calls, Superintendent Ochoa?
You don't.
Okay. Let's then continue on with your presentation, sir.
I'm going to share my screen here. All right. Can you give me a thumbs up if you all can see that? All right. Tonight's presentation is intended to get us all working off of the same information. I think all of us just heard that there's public comment to support the idea of remaining on distance learning and to support the idea of offering in-person instruction. And what I'm going to recommend to the board tonight is that we do both, is that we allow parents to elect to keep their children on distance learning if that is their preference, but that we open up hybrid in-person instruction so that those students who desperately need that interaction and need to be on our campuses can do so for the last 7 weeks of school. So this is predicated on our county entering the red tier. And as you all know, last night it was announced that our county, San Benito County, entered the red tier, which is a major milestone for us. It's a positive sign. And I want to encourage those parents and staff members that are home watching this meeting to continue to wear masks and help us maintain those really low numbers in our county. And the proposed start date for us is April 12th. And part of the reason to set the date at April 12th is so that we have the time we need to make all of our instructional plans, the time we need to bargain with our employee groups. I want the school board to know that we have engaged in collective bargaining with both unions around this issue. Made a lot of really great progress with both. Both groups are just wonderful people who are really dedicated to all of our students and to their members. And so tonight's meeting is to give this board an opportunity to decide if we will give this this choice to our parents, this opportunity for parents to choose. All parents have received a survey from the district. We'll be doing 3 different ways of reaching parents. The first is using our email and text message system to have parents log in online. We're at about 65% of our parents district-wide have responded to that first survey. Our second measure will be to conduct a survey using our food service program. So as you know, we give out 2,000 or meals to 2,000 families. So if there's a family that didn't respond to our email, when they drive up to pick up their food, they'll get a paper survey on the spot. So there might be some families, let's call it a couple hundred, that haven't responded to our emails. They'll get their survey when they pick up their Monday meal day food from the district. And then the third way is we will call every single family. We will get absolutely clear information from every family on whether or not they're going to take advantage of this potential opportunity. What the plan calls for is hybrid in-person instruction in the AM or PM 4 days per week. And I want to talk why that's important. Our teacher union was very adamant and advocated very strongly that we have AM and PM sessions because of the importance of seeing younger students every day so that their growth and progress can be monitored and supported on a daily basis. Also because those children don't move around on campus, they'll generally be in that one classroom while they're on campus. So the way this will work is our teachers will have a morning group, an afternoon group, and a distance learning group. So if you have a classroom with 25 kids and 5 kids want to stay completely online, you'll see those 5 students completely online. They'll never show up to the school. You'll still do distance learning with them the rest of the 7 weeks of school. The difference is you'll have 2 in-person groups coming to you. So you have if they're, let's say that same teacher with 25 kids, we can't put 20 kids in a classroom at once because we want to distance students 6 feet apart from one another. So the maximum number of kids we can have in any one class is 16 with the teacher. So we'll basically have two groups. We'll have a morning group and we'll have an afternoon group. And the way that will work is we'll have students, a group of 10 come in the morning. They'll be with their teacher for a little bit over 2 hours, and then we'll have them head home. We'll sanitize that classroom. And then the next group of students comes in for instruction with their teacher. We sanitize that classroom again for the next group of kids to come in the next day. And there is one element or one example where there would only be one group. And we do have a couple of schools where the number of kids being requested to go in person is below 50%. So if I teach 25 kids and I only have 12 that want to show up in person, we're going to put all 12 kids in that morning session because we can do all the 6 feet of social distance. And what that will allow that teacher to do is just have more time for distance learning after. So we're really going to target it and support each classroom and each school with the needs that they have. And we think it's going to be about a 50-50 split. So right now, Lad Lane and Sarah Vista are at about 80 to 85% of families requesting in-person hybrid instruction. And we still have to get way more surveys from Calaveras and R.O. Hardin and Gavilan Hills HDLA. There's still several hundred surveys that need to come in, but it's much closer to about 55% at those schools. So we're gonna look at every single school and try to give as much attention to those children as possible in each one of those scenarios. So I wanted to make that clear. The other option is to allow the kids to stay home and continue to do distance learning. So as to not require kids to simply all have to come back to campus, because as you know, you just heard those messages, those emails from parents, how that process was going to work. I also did want to talk for just a minute about the grouping of students. I want to make it clear to the board, the district is totally ready with hand sanitizer, with PPE for the teacher, masks for the students, hand washing stations that are outside the room, also inside the room, either sinks or hand sanitizers inside the classroom. Temperature check stations right outside the school. So we're really, really prepared for these kids to be able to come back on campus. So I wanted to stop there briefly and give the board a chance to ask me any questions about the elementary part of the plan.
Well, I have a question, Diego.
And
How
Liz is
Liz is first. Go ahead, Liz.
For me, it was the ventilation. That was the only topic you didn't address right now. In securing people's, the safety in the classroom. So if we can kind of go over what you prepared for that.
absolutely, yeah. We were really early on that, Liz, and thank you for bringing that up. There's two things that we're going to do. So every single classroom in this district that has windows that open, that has a door and access either on one side of the room or the other, we'll open those doors and we'll open every single window leading into those classrooms on campus. As we all know, we want to get the air moving. We don't want static air. We don't want closed-in spaces. I think we're going to catch a little bit of luck because of the time of the year that it is. So I think it's going to start to warm up here pretty soon. So that will help us. But the other thing is that the district has acquired air purifiers that are HEPA filter approved that will exist in every single classroom. And what these filters do is they basically take in the air particles in the room, and they have the technology to be able to determine if the air is too static or just kind of sitting there. And when you plug them in and turn them on, they will start humming and moving the air around in your room until there's sufficient movement and circulation in the room. And we have, for every single classroom in this district, we have air purifiers with the filters waiting in storage if and when we need to replace them. So I think that's going to be a particular strength for us. So when our students return in person, at the board's decision tonight, they would go into a classroom that's going to have windows and doors open, but that's going to have a high quality, brand new air filtration system that's going to get that air moving and get that risk is going to be mitigated.
I had heard there were grants out there for for your heating and air conditioning units that, or the duct or whatever the system is, that apparently there were grants out there to replace them with new ones. I don't know if we looked into that as well, what the possibility would be of maybe some of our old units having them replaced.
We're looking at that, Liz, and thank you for bringing that up too. The only thing is the board, I think it was 2016, 2017 approved major rehauls of our HVAC system at Calaveras, Cerro Vista, Aro Hardin, Rancho San Justo. So what we're doing is we want to make sure that it meets the grant criteria, that it's going to work for us, because if it's too new, there's a chance that it wouldn't qualify for the update. What I can say is every single grant for those HVAC updates that we qualify for, we are applying for those grants.
Okay, thank you.
Carla?
Let me know, Superintendent Ochoa, if this is too soon to ask, but I just feel like maybe it might benefit all of us, including the public, to understand the last time we had a meeting, we were talking about special ed K through second returning to schools. That was the plan. That's been what we've talked about for a couple months. Now we're talking about K through 8 hybrid, opening the doors. So I think it's important to understand what happened. I know that just so that we're all clear on the same page about we were here and then now we're here. And my other question is also an option to remain with the way we were talking about, to continue with our original plan.
Now is the time, definitely, Carla. Thank you for that. A handful of different things changed. So one is a month and a half ago, the county's COVID infection rates and the county's COVID test positivity rate was sky high. It was among the highest in the state of California. And I think we're all thankful to see that over the last 60 days, those numbers have completely changed. What happened in that time frame is the state legislature and the state governor flipped their focus from making recommendations to school districts. So for the last 11 months, the governor and the legislature have given us recommendation after recommendation, just all the way down the line. And every school district has had votes to decide when to come back, how to come back, and how long to come back. And the governor and legislature made a huge change recently. They took a $6.6 billion grant for funding, and they took $2 billion of it. So they took about 30% of that funding. And they said, this $2 billion is dedicated to try to encourage school districts to open their doors as early as April 1st. So they passed Senate Bill 86 and said, the goal is for every single school district that is in the red to offer in-person instruction, K-6 plus socioeconomic disadvantage, homeless, foster, special ed, EL, kids who lack technology access, kids with what they call like a severe disengagement, like kids who are not logging in online. When you add those together, Carla, it ends up to be about 2,600 kids in our district. So that is more than half the students that we have in our district. At which point in time, we put our thinking caps on and say, if we only open for the groups of students that the state and the governor are, or the state legislature and the governor are including in this $2 billion, then it would result potentially in rescheduling of students among teachers. And that was something we weren't willing to consider, that taking kids out of the one teacher they've had all year and moving them somewhere else. So a big part of this has been the reality that personal protective equipment is expensive and that reopening campuses is going to be expensive. And for our district, they haven't given us the exact amount. As you guys are all aware, the state doesn't tell us those details when we would like to have them. But it's right in the range of $1 million. If we remained on distance learning until the end of the year, the district would lose out on $1 million of funding that I plan to use to purchase more PPE that will last us the next 12 months. So that's a one major huge change. And then the other part of it is the real demand that's in our community for the school district to offer the option, not to require it and to say everyone has to bring their kids back to school. Because we have, at some schools, almost half the families don't want that option. And then at other schools, 80% do want that option. So I think it boils down to acknowledging that distance learning cannot fill that need of giving children who have to have that emotional connection, that personal face-to-face connection. It's not meeting those kids' needs, and that's a lot of students. So by choosing April 12th, we give ourselves the spring break to get our campuses organized, and it gives us 7 weeks, which I plan to use as the superintendent to bring all of our students in, to connect with these families that are opting for in-person instruction, because at next week's school board meeting, I plan to present a 24-day summer school plan that will hopefully knock your socks off and have parents and students really excited about summer school. But having the kids physically here now is, in my professional recommendation to you all, it's an essential way to get them to come back in June. If we don't do that, we stand the real risk of creating a summer school and not having the families sign up for it and having low attendance in our summer school. Because I think what we're all going to accept over the next year and a half is that the learning loss that has taken place, and it has taken place in every district, in every community. This is not a Hollister or San Benito problem. It's a statewide issue. It's going to take 2 years to recover from. We're going to have to build up the literacy, build up the social, emotional needs of students. The other part of it, Carla, is that in the last 2 months, we've hired 2 additional school social workers that have started with us and will be on board in April. So this will give those social workers a chance to meet these children now before we even get to summer school. Because our plan for summer school involves counseling and social emotional services that, to me, it's essential to get these connections started, get these relationships started, so that when we swing around to, we're looking at the last week in June as being the start of summer school. We'll have a big roster of kids. Hopefully, my estimate would be somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 kids in our summer school program, which will be a huge increase over prior years.
I have one question about drop off and pickup
Yes.
school sites. How is that going to be handled so that we don't have major traffic jams with the kids coming out? How has that been? I'm sure that's going to be a site decision, but have our site administrators have had a chance to discuss that yet?
Yeah, so one thing that we're going to do, Jen, and yes, we haven't. Thank you for asking that. One thing we're going to do that's different than other districts is we'll have multiple points of entry. So if I can use R.O. Hardin as an example, we
Sure.
have an entrance at R.O. Hardin that's down by the multipurpose room. We will use that
Mhm.
entrance. We have an entrance right at the front of the school, We will
Right.
use that entrance right next to Mrs. Espinosa's office. And then if you think of that building, there's one building next to it where it's like, there's some storage, there's a custodial
Right.
office there. Next to that, there's another gate. We'll use that entrance as well. And the school typically has 500 students, but only, let's say 250 are going to show up because the other 250 may be at home with distance learning.
Sure.
But of that, yeah, of that 250, only 125 will be there in the morning. So if I have 3 entrances and 125 kids, that's about 40 kids per entrance, but it's spread over 15 minutes. So our plan is visible floor markings, multiple entries. We purchased these temperature readers that are technology based and they take your temperature in a second. So there'll be a fast way to have a student walk up to the camera, take the temperature, step 5 feet over here, sanitize your hand, and walk to your classroom.
And
It'll be a
Hollister
very,
Prep is going to have a totally different,
they'll be at a different time. That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they'll be, as you know, it'll be pretty close, so when Hollister
Sure.
Prep is finishing, we'll be starting, there's
Okay.
not going to be a huge gap of time, but we have planned
Okay. Super.
that. Yeah.
All right. Let's continue on then, unless there's any other questions from board members. All right. Let's continue, Superintendent Ochoa.
The middle school plan is different, Jan, and this is again something we've discussed with our teacher union. And it's basically different because middle school students change classrooms and we need to minimize the number of times kids are walking around campus. So the middle school plan is designed around kids going to campus 2 days a week for longer periods. So the in-person students will go for a little bit over 3 hours and they'll go to 3 classes in that one day that are carefully scheduled so that we have effective passing periods that don't require all these students to be out at the same time. So our 6th grade passing period will happen before 7th grade passing period. Our 7th grade passing period will happen before 8th grade passing period. So at no point in time will the students that are there for either of the 2 middle schools ever be on a passing period all at the same time. It will always be very tightly coordinated so that we have as few kids moving around campus as possible. And what we're estimating is at any given time, when we have a passing period, it will be around 130 kids that are moving from one class to another. And at that time, our administration and our support staff will be present to keep kids moving in the correct direction and to prevent kids from grouping up or breaking any of our social distancing guidelines. And what will happen is at the middle school level, we're seeing about 2/3 of the kids opt in. I just spoke to the Rancho San Justo principal. He said about 65% at his school, and the data at Mays was pretty close as well. So the teacher will have 1st, 3rd, and 5th period on Monday in person with students. And the plan is in the afternoon to have 1st, 3rd, and 5th period with their distance learning students. So the distance learning kids continue to have their classes with their teacher online. Liz?
I was thinking about this only because I'm a visual learner, and actually talking to a couple parents that have students in HSD. And I mean, I don't know how tech savvy we have, staff to help, but creating like a video, I thought would be awesome, because you don't, you could visually, even for parents that are still kind of like on the fence, not knowing, doing a video for elementary, what that would look like, the entrance, just following a student coming into campus, what the entrance would look like, our signage, where they would walk to class, what, the visual stuff, and then leaving at the end of school where we would want them to line up, etc. And then for the junior high as well,
Yep.
doing like a scenario. But to me, it's just because we can't really explain what it would look like unless we show them. And again, a video, it doesn't, you can, even without words, would know, any parent can see it and understand, oh, okay, I see, I get it. And really framing it out for you as to, everything we're talking about. But again, seeing it in a video, I think is a lot better for our community to really get an idea of what it would look like, coming onto our campuses.
Glad you brought that up, Liz. We're working on that now. We actually made one for Lad Lane when we opened in November, so we have a little bit of a template, and we're basically going to do one for every single school. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's good. Because
Yeah.
and just talking with some of the parents, because I think giving them a choice is just amazing. With the way we are going through certain anxieties still, and people not being fully vaccinated, I think having the possibility of doing long distance for those that want to stay, and for the ones that want to come onto campus. We welcome all in every form that they're wanting to continue on with their schooling.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you. In our plan, the kids would bring their devices with them. They're kind of like their textbooks now, so that's just makes it really easy. Bring your device. We'll get you online here. I think you're going to see a lot of hands-on instruction. I think our teachers are going to be excited to have kids do written work with kids, and do projects with kids, and do art with kids, and do lots of social emotional work with kids when they have them in person. When kids get on campus, we're going to take their temperature. They're going to see visible markings for social distancing. On our buses, we'll have all of the space requirements met, and staff will be wearing face masks. Once they come on campus, we're going to have them wash their hands and/or hand sanitize. Students themselves will be wearing face coverings. We have face coverings in every classroom and in every office, so children that need one will be provided one. And then inside the classroom, 6 feet of distance, and limiting class sizes so that we don't get ever more than 16 people in a room. That's a very important consideration that we have bargained with both of our unions on. Social distancing in all other areas of the school. So if you ever come onto our campus to look at one of the schools in operation during hybrid in-person instruction, you'll see kids are still separated from each other outside. Our passing periods in our middle schools will be staggered so that we won't have all the kids out, 300 kids out at the same time. We won't use the playground equipment, the physical playground equipment, just to reduce any potential spread of COVID. Kids will eat breakfast at home and at lunch at home as well for the remaining 7 weeks of school. And then kids are going to use their hand washing equipment. We're going to make sure we teach them how to wash their hands for the appropriate 20-second timeline. And we think that after a couple of days, it's just going to feel like second nature to the kids. Whoops. Go back there. There we go. All right. Classroom strategies. Inside the classroom, we're not going to have tables that have supplies that get shared between kids. So we're going to give supplies to each individual child. Inside the classroom, you'll see markings on floors where desks are. And then staff that work with children who are younger or need physical prompting are going to get more personal protective equipment assigned to them to make sure that they remain safe. Once kids come on campus, every single day, active screening, sanitizing. The district has purchased these really high quality handheld, if you remember the Ghostbusters movies, the little machine they held, and they're misters basically, and you walk into a room, and instead of using a spray bottle and a towel to wipe off every surface, you use the actual mister. It's much better for our employees. They all get a higher grade mask when they use it. And after 15 minutes, it dries and the surface is sanitized. So we're really excited about that technology coming into play. In terms of our tracing and reporting, we are going to be very vigilant about tracing and reporting COVID. Students with confirmed COVID-19 will return after 10 days if their fever is resolved and their respiratory symptoms improve. I do want the board to know that after multiple years of trying to bring on more nursing support, we interviewed and are hiring a new school nurse. So we're super excited about that because we've been understaffed in terms of our nurse. This is a person that comes to us with 15 years of school nursing experience. We're super lucky. She's relocating to the area, and both of our nurses and our director of student services and Erica interviewed the candidate, and they're all super excited that she's joining us.
Awesome.
So that's going to be wonderful because she's going to really add that last piece that we've been just making it work with our 2 school nurses. And now they have a really strong plan to be able to monitor all of the tracking and tracing and continue to meet all the special ed needs of our students in the district. So this is essentially the plan we have for you all. I would have spoken a lot more about COVID rates and percentages, but as you know, our county entered the red tier just yesterday. That was wonderful news everybody got. If we hadn't been in the red tier, it would be more complicated. Now that we are in the red tier, there are so many more options to us in terms of how we reopen our campuses and offer hybrid in-person instruction. But I believe the recommendation coming to the board accomplishes a couple of things. One is it allows parents who choose to keep their kids on distance learning to keep their kids on distance learning. It doesn't force anybody to send their children to school. Two is it complies with the state's requirements about who has to have in-person instruction in order for the district to be able to receive funding that we would use to purchase PPE to keep children and staff safe. Three, it addresses a very serious and immediate student social emotional need that exists, where we have hundreds of students who badly want to physically come on campus to feel a sense of normalcy and a sense of connection to their classroom and their teacher. And then 4, we're doing it in a way where we honor the importance of the academic side of meeting the learning loss that we know has taken place, connecting it to summer school, and then leaving space for teachers and administrators to meet the social emotional needs of the students we're bringing in now that we have the staff in place that we've hired going into next school year. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board. My recommendation to the board is that you all approve the district's reopening plan, specifically the COVID prevention plan and what has been agendized for, I'll stop sharing, but what's been agendized for this meeting is to offer hybrid and in-person instruction as early as April 12th.
Superintendent Ochoa, mask will be required of all children?
That's correct.
Okay. Even at TK?
All students.
All students, okay. Unless there's a medical,
We have
problem.
exceptions for children with special needs that require it and for children with medical exceptions.
okay. Do I have any questions? Elizabeth?
Um, do we know what our staffing numbers will be? Well, are you just still waiting for the surveys to come through to determine? Because I know some of the concerns of some staff was, I'm not quite, I haven't gotten my 2 vaccines. So are we going to try to work with staff so that those that are comfortable and want to be on campus would do so? Or are we just saying everyone is coming on campus and do part in person and part long distance?
My recommendation is that we have all of our employees return. At present, we have vaccinated through our online means, through the local doctor's offices, close to 95% of the staff that is interested. There are some staff that are not interested in receiving the vaccine. Um, and those that remain unvaccinated to this point are staff members who are electing to have a specific kind of vaccine administered at a specific time or on a specific date or at a specific location. So there are staff members who have expressed they'll only get a vaccine from their doctor, they'll only get a certain type of vaccine, and only if it's administered at a certain date and of the week, like for instance on a Friday afternoon. So those are things that we can't accommodate because they're just personal preferences, and that person is going to wait for their option. Yeah, and so the reason to do it that way, Liz, is so that we maintain the integrity of the educational experience for the child. So if my teacher is um, not offering in-person instruction, it would require a rescheduling of kids to people they haven't been with all year, and we think that would be a real detriment to their education.
Because I know
Carla?
some, no, I'm sorry. Go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Carla.
Elizabeth.
You want to finish, Liz?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, because I had, there were some teachers that also have children. And so when we're still doing partial,
Mhm.
for them, they'll be having to be on campus, but their children may not be able to be fully on campus.
Mhm.
And so will there be, so I'm just trying to,
Mhm.
if I was a teacher, if it, I was in those shoes trying to figure out how to, I know a lot of daycares are opening back up, and so it's just trying to, figure out how I mean, we're having these discussions almost a month, before we start, which is good. I'm glad we're doing it now because it helps people prepare, right? Just as if we were starting a new school year, right? That you have to kind of start looking for daycare and your needs, etc. Because I know Jen had asked the question, where were we legally if a person didn't want a vaccine, and want to come onto campus, etc. So I know she had asked that at the last board meeting. And so I don't know, she wanted to see what legal stance was on it. So I don't know kind of what response we got from legal on that.
Legal's response is we cannot require employees to get the vaccine. There's no authority that we have to demand that, and we would stand a risk of litigation if we tried to compel the vaccination of the staff. The other thing to consider is the public access to vaccine is also going to greatly improve here in the next couple of weeks. I spent time today preparing Rancho San Justo's gymnasium as a potential vaccination site in the days ahead. I'll present to the board on that on the 23rd of March, but that would be for community members. That would be for our parents, for our grandparents. And then the other piece is we are in the middle of negotiations, so I won't go into too much detail publicly here, but we are planning to offer after-school care for our employees, CSEA and HESTA.
Well, because I see COVID almost like, TB. I mean, I've been working for school districts for 19 years, so I am required to get my TB, screening or whatever. So I just wasn't sure because it kind of seemed like it was something similar to that, in a sense, but we'll see how this progresses, right? Within the structure of the law. But that's awesome. If for us to be able to do that for our staff, that's incredible, Diego. Thank you. That's a huge relief for a lot of folks. Thank you.
Carla?
Yeah, I have comments and then some questions, if it's okay. So I just, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the work you've been doing. And and I'm gonna say, not gonna say but maybe I am. Um, I feel I feel that, and then a lot of people have been reaching out there's a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of hesitation, not only with our staff and our teachers, but also our parents, right? This topic is divisive. Unfortunately, it's divisive in a political way, and I don't have to tell you all that. It depends throughout the state and the country. It depends on your income level, it depends on your racial background, where you stand. And I just want to put that out there that that is also playing here in our county. And the people that have been impacted by COVID, that have lost loved ones, have been people of color. That is a fact. The people that have been not able to access vaccines are people of color. Those are numbers that any one of us can look at, and that includes our teachers and staff in our community. The learning loss, of course, has been great. The digital segregation, the digital divide. I mean, these things have impacted everyone. So I don't think that, when people say we don't, people are unsure about reopening, quote unquote, it's not that we don't want our students to go back to school. There's a lot of hesitation there, right? Safety needs to be key. I think I know that there's the PPE that you're putting in place, but I think the hesitation for me, I'm feeling like, why all of a sudden? I'm like, "Ugh," I'm feeling a lot of pressure, honestly, fellow board members. I feel like I want our kids to go back, but I thought we had a plan. And then the plan got derailed by the state and federal government and others pressuring the state and federal government. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. And so one of the questions I have is the money that's being offered, um, do we have to take it? We don't, right? And if we don't, it doesn't mean we get less money. It just means we're not going to take that pot of gold that they're offering, right? And then the other thing that I've been seeing other school districts, and I watched a couple of their board meetings. If they follow the one of them, actually two that I saw, follow the plan like the one we thought we were following of the special ed K through second, and there's still money that you can access if you follow that plan. So we don't have to take the full pot of gold, but maybe half the pot of gold. But I know that that's not what's being recommended today. So why all of a sudden, the money issue, and we had a plan for priority groups. The parent voice, let's look at the demographics again about who's pushing, who's making, who's the one pushing for us to reopen. I read this article on, and anyone can look this up on calmatters.org. I've been reading a lot, trying to really think about this decision. I don't know about you all, but it's been really weighing. I don't want to get emotional, but it's a tough decision. And even for those parents that think, that make comments that, oh, you guys don't want to reopen, that's not it. We're looking out for everybody, every single student. We don't want anyone to get sick. We don't want any teachers or staff to get sick or die. So this article, it said school closures in of themselves are not the problem. The problem is COVID. So let's be clear. We didn't create this problem. When the pandemic hit and we had to close the schools and we had to close them like that, and really it was not our decision, it had to happen. There was not a plan in place at that time. We can create a plan now. We know that things are getting better. And by the way, there's kids watching today, and so I just, want to say hello, that, we're trying to make these decisions for all of you, and that we need to be more thoughtful. Not that the plan you have put out there, Superintendent Choa, is not thoughtful. That's, I hope you understand. I just feel like the pressure coming from the state and federal is way too much. And that maybe us at a local level can make a different plan and adapt. And so can we go back to the original plan? Can we get funding? If we opt out, we don't lose anything. We just don't gain that extra money. Right. And so I just think that we have an opportunity.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Um,
Oh, you want to speak? Go ahead, uh, Mr. Ochoa.
no, go ahead, Lisa.
Okay. first of all, Carla, I hear you and I feel you. I feel that pressure as well. It's a very large responsibility that we're all having to take on right now that involve um, a lot of people, not just our staff and teachers or students, but their families. And as the mother of a teacher who's going probably back into a classroom soon, I worry about, her coming home with me, right? So I understand that from a visceral level. I also have just like a couple of questions, logistical questions. Like the kids who have siblings in a school, will there be plans to keep them in the same session? Because I just keep kind of seeing this possibility of scheduling snafus, right? Where one's in an AM session and one's in a PM session. So that's something to take into consideration. I know you said that they will have their own supplies, but how will those supplies be stored? Does the student have to bring it on and off campus themselves? Those sorts of things came up. If a teacher does not choose to get vaccinated, do we have an obligation to inform the parents of their students so that they can make an educated decision about whether or not they want to bring their child back into the classroom? And I know we have HIPAA issues, but it just seems like I would want to know. If it meant, it would make a difference to me as a parent, whether I sent my child back in. Um, so I just think that there's a lot here. I feel also I understand that the state is incentivizing this process. And I understand that there are a lot of parents. We're never going to make a decision as a board that's going to please all the parents. We're going to be, evil to one side or the other. And I hope that whatever decision it is we make as a board, that it's one that we at least know we thought out and really considered and is going to benefit more than it may harm. I like the idea, Superintendent, that you have the choice there. Um, and I loved Elizabeth making the suggestion that we do a video to kind of show what does a day look like, because as well as you uh, explained, I still am a little unclear beyond the AM PM section how it falls into the distance learners, and how do those teachers have to teach to their in-person and their distance learners and keep track of all of that. And I know this is hybrid, right? I think so. There will be days when everyone's asynchronous. So how does that work out scheduling for the parents? I'd just like to get a better sense of what does that schedule look like at the elementary school level and also at the middle school level. So those are my comments and questions.
Steve,
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Carla.
did you want to say anything, Steve?
Well, everything that's been said, I can concur with. One of the first things when COVID hit, my first response was I didn't sign up for this, because it literally puts you in a position of power over people's lives, and that is just not something I ever am going to feel comfortable with. And as I've said in the past, this is one of the hardest decisions I'll ever make. I mean, you literally are dealing with people's lives here. And I try to read every letter I get. I try to keep up with what's going on with the news and new ideas and ways of doing things. Um, I think as far as how I feel about reopening. If I had my druthers, I would say no. Why not just wait for the end of the school year? But on the other hand, by doing that, I'm also saying, hey, look, you people that want to go back to school, you teachers that want to come back to school. No, sorry, I know more than you do about this. And I don't want to be in that position either. Because I think if they should have a right to come back, especially since the state and the federal government is saying, yes, if you do all of these things, it's safe to come back. Uh, we're kind of having to take their word for it, but what choice do we really have? We're not medical people. So I really, if we are coming back, the plan that Superintendent Cho has come up with is a very good one. It covers everything that the state and federal government wants us to. Um, Personally, I don't think we should do it for the money. I don't think the money should have anything to do with this or the pressure from the. I hate being pressured by anybody, federal or state or anything like that. Decisions we have to make are for our people locally here. I love the idea that you've given people options. Whenever you give people options, it's a much better way to go. So I actually I am hesitant to say this, but I would vote to bring it back on April 12th because of uh, options number one. Anybody's not being forced to do something here. It's something that you are uh, um, um, not necessarily volunteering, but agreeing to do. So I, I know I'll never be satisfied one way or another with a decision like this, but that's kind of how I feel right now.
Uh, if Lisa, if it's okay, if I speak right now, there's a couple of things that I think sometimes people think that when we're going to open back up, it's going to be just like it was before. And we need to make sure that every parent understands it's not going to be the way it was before. It's going to be totally different. And you have to read everything that's in Mr. Ochoa's a handout or uh, presentation about what school will be like. It's going to be very closed in. They'll be with their small group. They're not going to be social with other classes in the school itself. They're not going to be eating at school. It's going to be very regimented, and I hope everyone understands that. I would like to suggest. I mean, we will vote, and but I would like to suggest that we allow the parents to do another survey because I want to make sure that the parents understand that now they will, let's say they're in the morning group and they have, I know it'll depend on grade level, how many minutes that their child goes, but they will be dropping off and picking up, and it's not going to be a full day of school. I think they
Mhm,
need to understand that.
mhm,
And then there's going to be a part where there's going to be a virtual session, and then there's going to be an afternoon in class session. And then on Wednesday, it's a full day of virtual. So
mhm,
we need to make sure our parents understand that their schedules are going to be different and they're going to have to make new child care. So this is a big change for everybody. And that the parents understand the changes that are going to be made. Um, I am just like all the other board members. I see the pluses and the minuses. I see the pluses that it'll help children understand how, because one of the biggest factors is wearing the mask. On my grandson's special needs, that's going to be hard for him. We're working on it now in the home, and that's what we as parents and grandparents are going to have to help our children and grandchildren wear masks at home so they get used to it. That's what we're going to have to do. But that's part of the structure if we want our children to go back to school. So I think for all of us, there's a lot of change. And I just want to make sure that the parents understand the changes because this is going to be a lot different than thinking you're going back to a full time schedule. Um, let's see, Lisa, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, another question came up when Steve was talking, and this actually harkens back to the not my personal not understanding the schedule, how it's going to work. So what came up was, um, what happens to the students who are in a virtual classroom with other students now? All the students are in a virtual classroom together. And then now some of them are not virtually present part of the time, um, but physically present. Does that cause a bit of social isolation itself? And will it feel, how will it feel, or do we know that, does that happen? Maybe I'm not understanding the process, but I know on those Wednesdays everybody would still be virtual, correct?
That's correct.
Asynchronous, or but for the people who are choosing to stay at home and not come back, will they be virtually in the physical classroom, or are they completely separate, and how does that work? So I need to understand that.
Mhm. The students that remain on distance learning, Lisa, would not have like a live stream or any kind of viewing of the instruction that's happening in person. Um, there are technological reasons why that wouldn't work, but there are also privacy concerns, and you know, the other part of it is just the instructional side of being able to teach virtually and in person at the same time is not something we've provided our teachers training on. Um, I want to just begin though. I want to go back to Carla's comments because I think one one huge thing that I've learned over the last 3 years in the district is just how connected our board is to children and how connected our board is to employees and how connected our board is to parents. So when I hear Carla talk about the fact that this isn't about staying closed, this isn't about not reopening, this is about genuine valid hesitation that people have, genuine valid medical concerns that people have, and the way it feels like totally rushed. I just wanted to acknowledge I see the same thing, I feel the same thing, I understand the same thing, and at the same time I think about the comments that Steve made about it's hard to be in a position where you're making decisions for other people's lives. And I don't think any of us like that feeling where we're like making decisions for another person's life. And I think ultimately the position that we've been put in by COVID, similar to Carla's comment, this is not a school district or California school issue by COVID, is we have to figure out right now what is the best for right now. And with our cases going all the way down, knowing that it's going to be imperative to have a really strong summer school program. And, you know, if everything continues to improve and these 100 million vaccinations that are get out to the public here in the next few months, and we take a central role in helping to get our families and our parents and grandparents vaccinated, then we put ourselves in a position to be able to offer in-person instruction in August and to do it in a way where we have already gone through the hybrid, because that's the other thing that Jan talked about and Lisa talked about, the shock that it will be to attempt to bring kids back on campus who haven't gone through the hybrid small. So I want you to think about this. A school has 550 kids, that's R.O. Hardin. Let's say only 250 are in the hybrid instructional program. Of that 250, 125 are going to show up in the morning session. So that's 1 out of every 4 kids that would normally be there. So I just want you to be able to picture that, just realize it's not 25 little bodies hunched together, it's 7 kids. it's 11 kids in a class that usually has 25. Um, and I just feel, after a lot of heartache and a lot of lost sleep, for me, it is the right recommendation to make to the board.
Carla?
Jana, yeah.
Okay, thanks. I have a few other questions, Superintendent Ochoa, and I just want to let the board and all of you know that I respect every single one of you, and know that whatever I vote, it is not personal. It is just I'm just each one of us has this precious vote, and we got to vote with our ethics and with what our constituents have been telling each one of us, right? So I just want you to know that. It may be one of those agree to disagree moments. I don't know. We haven't had many, but
It's okay.
anyways, question. Will there be consequences for individuals who choose not to wear a mask if they don't fall under the special medical or the other criteria? Um, I agree with Jan about the survey. I think that's a great idea to now, with parents knowing school's not going to be the same. There's not going to be this recess stuff and lunch, and because a lot of the comments have been about socialization. So people need to understand that returning to school is not going to be what returning to school a year ago was. And so, with that survey, keeping in mind that we are in this district lucky enough to have a lot of our staff and teachers as parents. So their voices will be in those surveys as well. And then if this plan is approved, or regardless, I think I'm really happy that Superintendent Ochoa has brought on social workers and mental health services. And I just would like to offer and ask for some consideration um, of support groups or some kind of ability for people to get together and just kind of check in, whether it could be small groups for the students. I'm really thinking about our middle school students, and I'm also thinking about our staff and teachers. If there's a way to either, I know our social workers not going to be able to do everything, but maybe contract with county mental health about offering some, come in and support our staff during these transition times.
It's a good idea.
Carla, I will say we'll have a contract for all of our parents and students regarding how wearing a face covering will be dealt with. Like anything else, we're going to teach, but at some point you have a meeting with the principal and the parent and the teacher and say, hey, this isn't safe. If you can't do this, you're going to be on distance learning for the rest of the year. And we do have that in place right now.
And
Okay.
one more
Yeah,
thing.
Steve?
Um, I honestly, I think the summer school component to this is more important than coming back April 12th. Um, we need to start catching up. And
Yeah.
if anything, these next from the 12th to whenever school ends might be a good way to start practicing some of these things because, Jed, in my opinion, you hit it right on the head. Even coming back in the fall, if you think things are going to be the way they were before, they're not.
That's right.
And we need people, students and parents need to understand that we're going to have to work this out. This isn't something
Steve, we lost you. Steve, we lost your voice. Steve, we lost your voice.
we need to start. And I think, in my opinion, at least on the 12th, we could get started. I don't know how much we're going to be able to get finished by the end of the year, but at least we'll start the process of coming back to school because we have to come back
Mhm.
sometime.
Yep. I agree with you, Steve. All right, I think we're ready to take a vote. Is there any more discussion? Okay, I need a motion, please.
I'll move that we approve the uh, coming back of students on April 12th to the Hollister School District for um,
the accordance of
social
SB,
distance learning.
yeah, SB 86.
Yeah. SB 86.
Second,
Second.
okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Uh, Opposed?
Oppose.
Okay, 4-1. Thank you. All right, let's go on to 8B. I'm sorry, 6B.
6B. Thank you, Jen. Tonight's presentation is a presentation of the second interim budget report. This is a report that the district provides annually to the Board of Trustees. The report itself summarizes the district's expected revenues as of January 31st, 2021, and all the way leading into the end of the year. This is the time of year where we want to be able to reassure the public and reassure the board that our budget is meeting our expectations, that we're not overspending. And so what I'm pleased to share with the board tonight on your second interim, I'm going to present, if that's okay with you, Jen.
Yes.
Okay. Is that our second interim indicates that the district's financial health is improving. After this year, there have been too many changes to go through each one, but remember a year ago, they told us they were going to give us all these deferrals, meaning they weren't
Right.
going to give us money. Well, that came and went. So that's changed multiple times. We closed all of our campuses. That has had a huge financial impact. We've received federal funding for COVID expenses. We've had to purchase several thousand computers. So there's just been, it's actually been one of the harder parts of my job over the last year, is just to keep a handle on how much we're receiving and how much we're spending, and to try to meet the needs of our students. So what I'm pleased to present to the board is that our district's reserves are improving. Basically, the district reserve started off healthy and has gotten better as the year has progressed. Our expenses, which you're looking at now, these two graphs, they're pretty close to any other year. They come in mostly through state resources. There is some federal money that comes in, but by and large, our funding is state provided. And then based on how much we bring in, the school district has a responsibility on an annual basis to plan expenditures. This board took a very conservative approach. And here is how we're spending our money on salaries and benefits. If you take the 41%, the 14%, that gets you to 55%, and then the 26%, it gets you to about 80% of our funding is salary and benefits, which is a really common area to be in that 80 to 85%. In terms of differences in our restricted accounts and in our funding, our district has brought in a couple of $1 million in our cafeteria fund, and we're expecting our fund balance at the end of the year to exceed where we started off this school year. And what you're looking at now is the chart of the expected revenues that are coming to the district. There's basically two different ways school districts can build their budget, is to use the Department of Finance projections or to use the school services recommendations for COLA. And on our next page, what you'll be able to see is that the district's ending fund balance is basically, once you look at the projected ending fund balance at $8.32 million at the end of this year, 8.5 million at the end of next year, and 10 million at the end of the third year. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board for any questions that you have. This is the kind of second interim presentation school boards should always want, which is we're spending what we thought, we brought in a little bit more than we expected. So we're in pretty good shape.
Well, when I was looking at it, I this year it's projected we have just a little bit under 10%, or I'm sorry, under 9% for our reserve. Next year, little over 11%, and then the following year, a little over 13%.
That's right.
So it's looking that our staff, if these trends remain correct, that our staff will be able to receive um, uh, raises for the next 3 years. Um, and we should be able to keep abreast with what's going on with cola and that kind of stuff, so that our people will not be behind.
That's right. And I'll definitely advocate to the board that we devote money to retain quality and to be competitive in keeping our employees, because we have some incredible teachers and counselors and principals and uh, instructional assistants and secretaries, and having competitive pay and competitive employee benefits is a part of that.
Yeah, yeah.
And we have this is the other thing I want to just call out to the board is you have been a board that has been aggressive about trying new things.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
realize these social work positions, the nurse position, the smaller class sizes, the footsteps of brilliance, the new math curriculum, the new science curriculum. We have not been a board that has simply said, Diego, put the money away and don't spend it. But we're in the
No.
position we're in because we have made smart choices. We have made thoughtful choices. And for me, keeping all of our best classified, certificated, and management staff is a very, very high priority. And one of the ways to do that, Jan, is to give people fair and competitive compensation.
Yeah, I don't want to make us a training ground and then they leave. I would prefer that they start with us and they stay with us because we're competitive and
That's
we'll
right.
give them the salaries they deserve. Steve?
Yeah, first of all, I want to, I, after what we've been through for a year with COVID, the idea, I mean, I've looked at a lot of these interim budgets over the year. I frankly am amazed that we were actually not only not have to dip into our reserve, but have a $645,000 excess. I just don't think, I don't know how that's possible, but I have to tell you, Diego, I have to give you all the compliments in the world for you to be able to do something like that in our situation. I have to commend you. It was remarkable. When I looked at those numbers, it was hard to believe, but they're there and I'm very happy.
Elizabeth?
Um, the questions I have is just taking into consideration. Um, I think we all are seeing all the homes, just how many more staff we're going to need to hire um, to accommodate for more students coming into our district, and how we're going to incorporate that, every year,
Hmm.
including, portables if we need to, in at certain schools we know are going to be impacted. So thinking about that, with our expenses coming down by next year, I can imagine, and the
Hmm.
year after that, and the year after that, and
Right,
then so
right,
on and so
right.
on. So, but yeah, I just, we can't lose sight of just making sure we're always, so we're able to keep the numbers down, and, and the grade levels we want, and really truly hire the best teachers and hire early. Like you said, that's been a huge game changer for us. So
Yes,
really starting that game early to know about where we're going to be at next year and starting to hire for that.
I agree. Carla?
I don't have a question, but I do want to thank Superintendent Ochoa for just always trying to find grants and money and ways for us to stay afloat. I mean, that's,
I
I
thank you
look
for
at that,
pointing
I
that
look
out.
at your report and I'm like, oh my gosh,
You know, thank
I
you
don't
for
have the
pointing that
brain.
out. Carla, we just found out last Friday that Rancho San Justo Middle School qualified for a major grant that's coming in a couple of months. And it's all about positive behavior intervention supports and multi-tiered systems of supports all around dismantling the school to prison pipeline. And
right.
and it was super competitive. It was a statewide grant in the entire state. A handful of schools got it. We actually applied for Sarah Vista as well because both new principals were just eager to get those things going, and we received it for Rancho San Justo. And then Liz, the other thing you mentioned is new housing and new residents. We are expecting to bring in about $5 million this year in developer fees to the district, and that is up from 2.7 million the year before and about 2.9 the year before that. But here's the position you all put yourselves in 2 years ago when we made the switch to create those K-8s, is you gave yourself some breathing room because you just built a new school. That school's gonna grow. It's giving you space at your other schools. And you brought up the point, Liz, about putting additional classroom spaces. I'll recommend to this board down the line that we create equity in the district, because that has been the five of you, your charge,
Right.
by building science classrooms and art classrooms at every school. So our brand new, fancy, beautiful $52 million school, it shouldn't be the only school that has that. My Aro Hardin students, my Sunny Slope students, my Lad Laners, they all need science
Agree.
classrooms. And yeah, so that's kind of where we're headed. I just wanted to fill
Don't
you
forget
all
the
in.
gyms.
Exactly. So there's a lot of positive momentum building that way. I know it feels sort of almost like, are we going to be ready for it? Because you see all these houses going up. And I just want to assure you, we are going to be ready. It's just a matter of, we have to cross that bridge when we get there. So the funding is coming in, the planning is in place. I think you all know we're going to be really aggressive about writing those grants. We just found out we were approved for funding for Sunny Slope and for Rancho Santana, the purchase of the land. That's about $6.5 million that we'll be getting in just a little under a year. So that's another huge influx of funding that will pay for what Jan just brought up, those gyms at Calaveras and Cerro Vista, and then those classroom spaces at all of our schools.
Okay. Let's see. Lisa, did
So
you
we
want
would
to
need a
say?
motion to approve the second.
Right, right. But I wanted to make sure, Lisa, did you have any discussion? Okay. All right. So I need a motion to approve the second interim budget.
So moved.
Second. I need a second, somebody.
Second.
Also, okay, Carla.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
I
Aye.
Any opposed?
lost Steve.
I know we lost Steve. Well, we'll put 4-0.
Okay.
4-0. And then Jan, we do have closed sessions, so I'm going to have
Yes.
our staff take us offline.
Yes.
The
So
YouTube
we will.
feed should be quiet.
Yes, we're going to end open session at 4:41.
Liz has something.
So can we just make sure, and going back to Lisa, that the schedules, because I know you have a survey out now, right, to parents. You're
Right.
like in the process still, right? So I don't think doing another survey is like, it's like overkill. But the schedule, like Lisa was saying, is so going to be so critical, and those videos, so that parents really know what it is that they're wanting their kids to participate in or not. I really want to be crystal clear with our parents, our staff, our community, what it is that we're doing and how we're going to go about it.
Is it too late to ask for a town hall?
I don't think so. I'd be happy to I mean, we can do it. We can all participate in a town hall if you think that's what we need.
I mean,
I
that's probably
I
the
like
best way to.
that.
What do you think, Diego?
I can definitely put it together, Carla.
I think that might be the way to go, and maybe have some slides so that everybody understands exactly what's going to happen. But and I think follow that up with um, it'll be online and maybe some kind of something that goes out to the by the teacher to the students so that they've been notified 3 different ways. So everybody understands what's going to happen on April 12th.
Yeah, I just think the more we do as a group to make sure that people have an opportunity to ask questions and get a better understanding, I think the smoother the process will be altogether.
Right, right. And the community can reach out to any of us as well.
Right.
Okay. All right. So I need a motion to close the meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn to closed session.
Second.
I
Second.
said, oh yeah.
Okay. So we're closing the meeting at all in favor.
I
4
Aye.
Yeah. Okay. We're adjourning at 4:44. And if we can have our